Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Wednesday, March 12th. Good morning to you, Duval. So we've got a Jaguars mock draft post the initial wave of free agency, and it's funny to say because, none of these guys have even officially been signed yet. You can't sign players until the start of the league year, which is today at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So all of these are contracts that have been agreed upon. It doesn't seem like anything is going to fall through the cracks, but you have seen it before in Jacksonville. You've seen Tyson Alualu saying that he was going to sign with the Jaguars, then to go back to Pittsburgh. You saw it last year with Will Lutz, but assuming all these guys end up actually signing, we're running a mock draft based on what the Jaguars have done, and what they have done is added 5 starters and added some depth pieces as well. They've added 2 starting interior offensive linemen in Patrick McCarry and Robert Hainsey. They added a starting safety in Eric Murray. They added a starting corner in Jordan Lewis, who, according to Cam Wolfe, who does a great job covering the NFL, Jordan Lewis will be the nickel, and they think that Jari and Jones could potentially play outside. They've also signed, at wide receiver, they signed our guy, Dyami Brown, who is going to be a top 3 receiver on this roster in 2025, I believe. So you've got 5 starters on this roster that they signed. You also signed 2 tight ends that can be rotational players, very good blockers, and you signed backup quarterback and a backup tackle. So you've done a lot. You signed 9 players. I think you signed 5 guys that, with the current roster, the Jaguars probably feel like they're starters heading into the year. Honestly, I don't think much of what the Jaguars did should impact the draft because I don't think they signed anyone that is necessarily a long-term play. Could Dyami Brown turn into that if he has a good year? Potentially. Patrick McCarry, not an older guy. Robert Hainsey, not an older guy, but I think those contracts, you probably look at wanting to have younger guys to fill in at least one of those spots over the next year or two, quite frankly. At least 2 to 3 years. So we're going to dive into this. My son is under the weather, and he's at home right now, so we're going to try to get through this real quickly. Ran this over on the PFF mock draft simulator. So if I'm looking down at my phone, it's because that's where the picks are. Mason Graham, defensive lineman at number 5. I still think this makes the most sense. That or a Jaguars trade down. And one more thing. We've talked a lot about Cooper Kupp. It looks like he is going to hit the open market in all likelihood. Until there's some actual news about that, we're going to move forward with the assumption that that's not going to happen with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So entering the draft, I think defensive interior is definitely in play. I think everything that was in play before is still in play because I don't think you necessarily signed anyone that you're going to have here for the next 5, 6, 7 years, right? So interior defensive line, the Jaguars have not addressed at all in free agency. Mason Graham comes over from Michigan, and I think he projects to be a true number 1 interior defensive lineman, 3-down guy who can impact the game in a major way as a pass rusher thanks to his quickness off the ball, his explosiveness, his violent hands. He can bull rush you, but he's really good at using his lateral agility and his hands to just disengage from blockers immediately and shoot into the backfield. He's got flexibility as well throughout his frame. He's got strength. So Mason Graham absolutely at 5 overall, kind of the stalwart of the interior defensive line for the Jaguars moving forward. Eric Armstead will be there this year. I don't think he'll be there beyond 2025. With the second round pick, 36 overall, we've got Gray Zabel falling to this spot. And if it's not Gray Zabel falling, maybe it's a Donovan Jackson. Maybe it's maybe Tyler Booker. There's a lot of different options potentially for the Jaguars when you talk about the interior of the offensive line. And yes, they signed Hainsey. They signed Patrick McCarry. This is not an organization, a regime that signed Ezra Cleveland. The previous regime signed Ezra Cleveland, right? And that's not to say that they don't like him or won't enjoy working with him, but there will be a team out following the 2025 season. You've also got Robert Hainsey, who in my opinion is more of a replacement level starter than like a building block at center. So Gray Zabel comes in, he provides immediate interior offensive line depth, and I think he's going to be a starter for you sooner rather than later. And again, if it's not Gray Zabel, Donovan Jackson, I think that there will be some guys available at 36 that can definitely fit the bill there. At 70, cornerback, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. He's not the tallest guy, but he is incredibly strong, incredibly explosive. I think he can play outside. He can play inside. He's sticky in coverage, quick feet, physical. He kind of brings everything that I'm looking for. Even though he doesn't have the greatest size, he does have enough length at the position to feel comfortable with. And the Jaguars, I don't think they're going to be a team that is overly concerned with length moving forward. Certainly not compared to the previous regime that was here. But Jacob Parrish at 5'10", is that right? Yeah, 5'10". He does have 31-inch arms, so that's good proportional length. He's 191 pounds at 5'10". He's a strong dude, and he's going to bring it. 4.35 40-yard dash, 1.51 10 split, 37.5-inch vert, 10.9 broad, and the tape matches up with all that stuff. So Jacob Parrish at 70 overall. At 88, Femi Oladejo out of UCLA, and this might be viewed as a little early for Femi Oladejo, but I think the arrow is pointed way, way up with Femi, who I think is extremely explosive, has good length, brings the energy. He was playing linebacker at UCLA, converted to edge mid-season, really. I mean, he was taking linebacker reps early on during the 2024 season, converted down to edge, did a tremendous job throughout the regular season at UCLA, and then went to the Senior Bowl, kicked some butt there, did a really good job at the combine as well. So I think you look at Femi Oladejo as somebody who, as a forward-thinking football team, the Jaguars could identify as someone who the best football is certainly ahead of him. I think there's no question about that. So you look at what he did this year at UCLA, and he had 33 pressures and 7 sacks on 325 pass rush reps. He was strong against the run. He's got some development, certainly, but as a rotational edge behind Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, I think you could feel really good about that. And, Jacob Parrish, we didn't talk about like the fit there. I think he projects to be a starting outside or inside corner for you sooner rather than later. And again, you signed Jordan Lewis, but he's 29 years old. You have him on a 3-year deal. There will be an out after the 2026 season. So maybe that's the time in which, Jacob Parrish moves into the starting lineup. I think the Jaguars are going to be a team that runs a lot of heavy defensive back packages, a lot of defensive backs on the field. So I think that fits there. At wide receiver at 106, maybe a little bit late, but I think that you're addressing a lot of big time areas and getting really good football players. And you look at what the Rams have done, the way they built their wide receiver room. None of those guys were super early picks, right? Tutu Atwell was the earliest pick I think the Rams have made at receiver. But Kyle Williams out of Washington State, another guy who really impressed me throughout Senior Bowl week, impressed on tape as well, and had himself a heck of a combine. I think that Kyle Williams is a natural route runner. He is very explosive. He's got natural hands. And one of the things we're looking to identify is guys that have the ability to force missed tackles and get yak, right? So I look at those two traits and his ability to be consistent at the point of attack, at the catch point, and he was insanely productive this year, almost 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns, averaging 17 yards per catch. But he averaged over 8 yards of yak per catch at Washington State this year, 21 forced missed tackles. Again, 6 foot 186. I think he's right in the size range that the Jaguars could really use in the screen game and deep down the field. Just really impressive overall prospect. I'm not sure why he's so slept on. I value him on day 2 of the draft, late day 2, certainly, maybe mid day 2, quite honestly, with his profile overall. He ran a 4.4 flat 40-yard dash, 36.5-inch vert, 9.11 broad jump. So this is an explosive guy at 5'11", 190, and definitely a player I think the Jaguars will have their eyes on. At 125, we go safety. Again, the Jaguars signed Eric Murray. They have some other guys who can compete, Darnell Savage. But I think that going and getting Billy Bowman here in this situation. Eric Murray to me is more of a box safety. He has the versatility to line up in a lot of different places, there's no question. But Billy Bowman comes in, and I think he's more of that free safety type. That roamer can go get you some interceptions and make some big plays on the football. So that makes a lot of sense at 125. At 143, we've got our first running back coming off the board for the Jaguars. I do think they like Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, but Etienne's going into the final year of his rookie deal. Tank Bigsby has had some fumbling issues. So you bring in Damian Martinez, who is a big back. He is, right? But he has vision, patience. He knows how to press the hole. Once he gets to the second level, he is really able to either juke you out of your jock or run straight through you. He's physical. Ran a 4.5 40 at like 220 pounds, which I know 4.5 these days is like not that impressive. But you watch him on tape, and he's got the goods. There's no question about it. At 183, round 6, Ty Robinson, always falling, and this is a guy who blew up the combine with his athletic testing. I do think when you look at what he did at the combine versus what you see on tape, I don't think it quite matches up. I do think he looks linearly explosive on tape, and you saw that at the combine as well. But he plays with an edge, and he is an athlete, and so I think the Jaguars could value him. Would he fall this far in the NFL draft? In reality, I'm not sure, but he continues to fall in these mock drafts. So Ty Robinson, I think, is somebody who could bring some juice to the interior, bring an attitude, an edge to the interior for the Jaguars that I would like. At 195, round 6, wide receiver Ty Felton, who, somewhat similar profile to a Kyle Williams out of Washington State. I think he's a little bit more of a juiced up athlete. And used in the screen game a lot, and the Jaguars are going to have an extensive screen game with Liam Cohen as their head coach, as their play caller. They're definitely going to get the screen game going. Ty Felton knows how to get the job done there, and he came in at 6'1", 183, 4.37 40-yard dash, 1.5 110 split, 39.5-inch vert, 10-10 broad. He is a big time athlete, and so you look at this wide receiver group, I think they do need some more speed. I think you look at the fact that De'Ami Brown, even if he does play super well, like, could you replace his production cheaply in the draft following the 2025 season? I think you could. I think Kyle Williams projects to be a really, really good player. I think Ty Felton can be more of that specific role player for you. Again, getting the screens, or the big plays down the field, touchdown or check down type of situation, type of player there. Carson Vincent at 223, the tackle out of Alabama A&M. He's got all the traits, and again, with Walker Little being young, under contract for the next few years, I think you look at him, the earliest the Jaguars would move on from Walker Little is following the 2026 season. But bringing in someone like a Carson Vincent, who has a lot of traits you're looking for, who acquitted himself well at the Senior Bowl, could provide fruitful or prove to be fruitful down the road for the Jacksonville Jaguars if they decide they want to move in a different direction at either tackle spot long term. So that'll do it for this one. Really appreciate y'all tuning in, and let me know what you think about this mock draft in the comments section below. Y'all have a good one.